in a while to show you the world of the post-Byzantine inscriptions. Of course, I'm not sure how much you are acquainted with this topic, so I will just for brief moments, I will share with you my experience with post-Byzantine inscriptions, with identifications and classifications of the inscriptions that I deal with in my work, and I will talk briefly about a few projects with joint projects with Bulgarian Academy of Sciences, and then briefly I will talk about ORASIS project, which is the focus of our joint presentation with Professor Iliev today, and I will talk mainly about inscriptions, post-Byzantine inscriptions, which means mural church inscriptions in Bulgaria, but not only in Bulgaria, in all the Balkan area. And then Professor Iliev, Mitko, will continue. So now I'm gonna share my first presentation. I hope you see the topic: Bulgaria's post-Byzantine church murals and inscriptions. Just to make sure that I change the slides. Yeah, okay. So if we are talking about post-Byzantine epigraphy, maybe we have to say something about what is Byzantine epigraphy. Byzantine epigraphy, of course, is a much broader theme and topic in sense that in the inscriptions, Byzantine inscriptions were inscribed upon variety of materials, upon stone, graffiti, painted and mosaic inscriptions, upon coin seals, weights, bricks, minor art objects, etc. The inscriptions in Byzantine Empire, of course, are continuation of the ancient tradition, Greek and Roman tradition, but the topic that I'm interested in are the sacred inscriptions. So of course, you know, in Byzantium we have sacred inscriptions, we have funerary epigraphy, we have commemorative epigraphy, epigrammatical poetry. When we talk about post-Byzantine inscriptions, I think we can safely say that it's a continuation of one branch of the Byzantine epigraphy, and more precisely Byzantine church epigraphy. So in post-Byzantine times, in post-Byzantine period, which means after the 15th century, from the 15th to about 19th century, or even the early 20th century, we have a tradition that is a continuation. It is using the same methods, same texts maybe, and in this area, in the Balkan Peninsula, we can say that it's a continuation of Byzantium itself in the Ottoman period. So what are the main characteristics of this field, post-Byzantine epigraphy and post-Byzantine inscriptions? We can safely also say that there are few cultural and artistic centers active in this period, such as Athos, Crete, and etc. Castoria, for instance. There is a close connection between the image and word. This is a topic that is widely discussed in the scientific literature, the connection between the picture itself, the icon, the mural, and the inscription. So we cannot just simply divide the image and the inscription. We have to deal with both of these objects. They're part of one and the same thing. And in my work, I often uh, I have contact with art historians who help me in my work, and of course I help them too. So inscriptions are mainly in the sacred environment of the monastery, the temple. This is very important because this is uh, giving the context of the inscriptions. Because one of the main problems when we deal with such post-Byzantine inscriptions, the main problem is identification. This is something that maybe we don't have it in such degree in the classical inscriptions, but in the post-Byzantine ones, we have to identify the text. Of course, you expect maybe that when you enter the church, you see text from the Gospel, from the Bible, or some sacred text that you're very well acquainted with. But there are many other texts, and the most interesting text, I think, the inscriptions, I think, are those which are written in the scrolls of the saints. And this is my main focus in my scientific work, the texts from the scrolls of monks and saints. And when I try to identify such texts, of course, there are many that are already identified, and you can see copies of one and the same text in different churches and environments. But of course, there are instances when you have to really look carefully. And the digital world that we live in nowadays, the internet, of course, helps us a lot to identify such texts. Of course, we don't only have such inscriptions, scroll inscriptions. We also have historical inscriptions, donors inscriptions, we can say also. And the background of this slide that you see here is one example of such historical inscription. And finally, as you see here on this slide, I have written that the audience of these inscriptions are Christians, and this is one of the main differences between post-Byzantine epigraphy and Byzantine epigraphy. So this is just briefly one introduction to the post-Byzantine inscriptions. Here you see an instance of such text. This is inscription written by an Albanian painter, and it is a difficult text to identify, but actually it is not kept in its original place where in the church itself. This is inscription from the middle of 16th century, and it is kept in the museum in Castoria. And the name of this painter is Onufrius. So he decorated churches in Albania and Northern Macedonia. And here the translation of this text is: when you hold out your arms to God, remember Onufrius, painter, priest, and chief priest of Neocastro. So this is actually a signature of a painter. Yes, this is the reading itself, but this is a PowerPoint presentation, so I hope you see well the fonts that we use also in our project ORASIS. This is a specific font which is called Athena Ruby, and it is developed by Dumbarton Oaks. Okay, I move to one other example. This is an inscription in a scroll of Theodosius the Kinobiarch. This is a saint from the 5th or 6th century, born in Cappadocia. And this is a difficult text for identification. It is attested in so-called painter's manual. So this is one other example of how we have to identify inscriptions, post-Byzantine inscriptions. We have not only to look into Byzantine literature, into patristic literature, into sacred text, but we have one other option to look in the so-called painter manuals. What is a painter manual? It is called also Herminia. This is a private, let's say, a text written by the painter himself, and it is a text that helps him uh, to actually to go in the church and write the inscription themselves in the church. So these are notes that we have some very famous painter manuals that are edited and published, and it is a very good point to start when identifying such inscriptions. Okay, so this is example of such text that is identified only in a painter's manual, but not the real source actually is not found until now. So the vain tumult of worldly thoughts blunted the discernment of the soul, thus showing that the mind is blind and full with darkness. This is a inscription, a text from the patristic literature or from the monk literature, let's say, spiritual texts for helping the monks to keep their focus and concentration on the spiritual life. So a few words about the painters. From the Byzantine period, we have only about 100 names of painters. And from the period from 15th to 18th century, we have more than 2,000 names of Greek painters. So you see that in the Byzantine times, this is a time of anonymity. Anonymous painters, they don't like to show themselves. But later, we see that they begin to inscribe their names. But in Bulgaria, there are less than 20 names of painters from the period from 15th to 17th century. And now it is very interesting to try to find different churches written by one and the same painter or one and the same team of painters. So I will just in a few minutes, I will show you such a project we were trying with colleagues from the Institute for Art Studies in Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. We were trying to trace the road of such painters in the Balkan area. So also other hindrances for such scientific work. There are no written sources. How exactly the painters on the Balkans organized their work and handed down their knowledge. So trying to trace connection between painters is only possible through additional means. That means the style of the paintings themselves, and also by epigraphic data. And I have to say, and I'm sure you know about this, that during the Ottoman period, there were intense inter-ethnic contacts. The mobility of the painters is one of the main characteristic feature of the people involved in this work. And we have also linguistic interaction. This means that we can come and enter church, to come into churches that are inscribed in two languages, for instance, Bulgarian and Greek language, or Serbian and Greek language. Of course, the Greek language is the main one, but here it is also difficult to say In different regions on the Balkans, there are examples of different degrees of influence between Greek and Slavic languages. Okay, I continue. What are the methods of research? So this was a brief introduction to the field of post-Byzantine epigraphy. What are the methods of research of such inscriptions? Of course, when we began to work also with Mitko for ORASIS project, we had to analyze the existing classifications of inscriptions because this is the starting point. Here you can see one classification by content. For instance, donors inscriptions. These are the historical inscriptions. They're very important because they show us the main information about when the church was built or when the painters finished their work and who are the painters. Also, we have explanatory inscriptions, which means that these are inscriptions written next to the scene, and they're telling us what is the scene exactly. And then we have invocatory inscriptions. All the other inscriptions, we can say that they're invocatory inscriptions because they're prayers, mainly prayers, exclamations from the Old Testament, the New Testament. The liturgical inscriptions are also exclamations, prayers. Poetical inscriptions, they also serve this purpose to build a connection between the viewer and divinity. We have also some mixed type of inscriptions, for instance, compilatory inscriptions. They're very interesting but difficult to identify. We have apotropaic inscriptions, which means inscriptions designed to propel evil forces. We have also imitations of texts and other. Of course, we have illegible inscriptions. So this is one example of a classification that we use in our project, ORASIS project. Maybe because I already mentioned the name of this project, what does it mean, ORASIS? ORASIS from, of course, Old Greek. It is a vision. This means vision. So vision of the saint, usually the Old Testament books of the prophets, they were visions. And maybe this is one way to say which are the most important inscriptions for our project, these scroll inscriptions. We have also inscription types by place. We use also this classification in our project. For instance, inscriptions written in the narthex or the naos or the eps. And this is the first level, or the most basic level of the place of description in the church. So we have to really, when we have a digital edition of corpus of inscriptions, we have to be able to find ourselves. Where is this inscription exactly? And there is only one way to do it, by such elaborate classifications like this one. And the second level is east wall, west wall, south wall, north wall, or the vault, or the zenith of the church, south flank, north flank. And also the third level, maybe you're not familiar with this. The first level and the second level are easy to get acquainted with no experience beforehand. But on the third level, we have first register, which means this is the first row, and then we have second row and third row of scenes or figures of saints or prophets, and we can have third, fourth, etc., etc. So this is another classification. And now briefly about the edition of such inscriptions. Uh, this is the description scheme that we use in the ORASIS project. Of course, we have the place of the inscription, we have index of the inscription, and because we can safely say we are pioneers in this field, we don't have to really adapt to existing editions. We're and this is both bad and good. And so we hope that we are trying to we are um, giving directions to such projects that will continue to exist with the same description schemes like ours, because we hopefully we are starting with 200 inscriptions in Bulgaria, but we know about colleagues in Cyprus, and we hope in also maybe in Serbia or other countries that we will begin to collaborate using the same classifications and the same description schemes. So we have the location description in the scene. Previous publications, there are mainly publications by art historians. And of course, we have the inscription itself, diplomatic text, interpretive text. We have to have a source, a photo, or exautopsia is the best and option. And we proudly put this notion about an inscription when we have this opportunity. Of course, translation and commentary, which includes linguistic features, phonetic, morphological, syntactic, and other. So this covers my first presentation, and now I will show you another presentation. And just in 5 minutes, I will stop and Dimitar will continue. So this is the ORASIS project, a digital collection of Bulgaria's post-Byzantine church murals. I already told you about the name of our project. I already told you about the teams of Balkan painters. This is a joint project that I was involved in with in about 3 or 4 years ago with colleagues from the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences, and the purpose of this project was to trace these connections between artistic centers in Bulgaria, Greece, Macedonia, Serbia, Albania. And this project was very useful, and I hope that we will use all the experience together with my colleagues, and in course of time we will incorporate this experience in the ORASIS project. So here on the right you can see the website of this project. I recommend, if any one of you is interested in post-Byzantine inscriptions, there is an English version of the website. The web address is zography.info, and you can read many interesting articles. Okay, these are my colleagues from the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences, and this is showing you the field work. I think that this is very good when you start a digital edition and a corpus of inscriptions, to have such experience in all the Balkan countries. So, for instance, here on the low left, we are in Macedonia, I think, and the first picture on the left, on the first row, the mountains that you see, this is Albania, and yeah, on the right, you see the project leader, Professor Biserka Penkova. Yeah, this is just brief in order for you to get an idea briefly about a field work in this post-Byzantine world. And these are examples of how one can trace connection between different churches using a philological approach. For instance, you see here examples from 4 different churches and monasteries. Kurilovo monastery is in Bulgaria, Doborsko is also in Bulgaria, Slimnica monastery is in Macedonia, and Seslovci is near Sofia. And you can see here the letter Ch, which is one and the same actually, and this helps us to identify connections. And this is very useful, the orthography of the inscriptions. And in the digital editions of corpora, when we have good photos of the inscriptions, we can really appreciate these new tools that we have, comparison methods. And I think until now this was this is not done. This is not. This was not possible. Let's say. This is another project which is still not finished. This is a project in which I'm involved together with the National Church Historical and Archaeological Museum, and I hope in few months a catalog will be published. And what is this project about? This project is about the largest collections of icons in Bulgaria. And in the museum contains almost 700 icons from the end of the 13th to the end of the 19th century. And I hope in the future, maybe not in the near future, but in the next 10 years maybe, or like Mitko said, it is a life's work. Maybe we'll come to a point that all the inscriptions from icons from churches will be gathered in one place. And I dream of such a moment. And this is the beginning, I think, or maybe I hope so. And now I come to ORASIS project itself. You see here the initial, the starting page of the website. It is still under construction, and we have only about maybe 20 inscriptions from Seslovci monastery. And I already told you that these are inscriptions in church murals. They're written in Greek language. We are beginning with Greek inscriptions, but later on we will maybe continue with Slavic inscriptions also. We begin with inscriptions from the 17th century with all the classifications and commentaries that I already told you about. I'm trying to come to the next slide. Okay, this is one of the first projects of its kind concerning the digital presentation of Balkan post-Byzantine heritage. I think this is important. Here on the right, you can see my book, which is based on my PhD thesis, and it deals with the churches from the 17th century in Bulgaria. And the book is called The Greek Language in the Churches with Mixed Inscriptions from the 17th Century. Here you see a map of Bulgaria. So the ORASIS project is starting with inscriptions from these churches. One part of these churches are painted in orange and the others in white. Why? Because these on the left are churches with mixed inscriptions. We have bilingual inscriptions, Slavic and Greek inscriptions, and I think these are very interesting churches. And we have more influence by Church Slavonic and substandard Greek language. And on the right, you see more influence from Constantinople, which is the expected thing, maybe, because it is closer to Constantinople. And what is our approach to the source material? Our approach is, I already told you about our classifications and our methods of research. Here on the left, you see what others are doing in Bulgaria, and others are art historians. They publish corpora of inscriptions. This is a corpus of the 17th century, but the inscriptions here are not really published well, I think. And these are also older publications from the 80 years. For instance, the frescoes of Alino, written by Elena Floreva. Here on the left, you can see how art historians are editing inscriptions, and this is our way on the right, with much more detail and orthography features. So one of the main, I think, good points and focus points of our project will be intertextuality. We will try to see all the connections between the inscription, the source, the painter manual, and here in this slide you can see different painter manuals. On the right you see the first published edition of the famous manual of Dionysius of Furna. This is a Greek monk from the 18th century, and his manual is very thorough and very, very big one, and contains a lot of information. And on the left side, you see the manual of Diciu Zugrav, who was one of the main painters in the 19th century. And this is also a very good example of a well-written painter's manual. And finally, I will show you some inscriptions. These are inscriptions from the Karlukovo monastery, inscriptions from the narthex, the northern wall. And if you see the inscriptions one by one, there is it is very difficult to find the meaning of the texts. For instance, Lord my God, I know that. This is not enough, and also you see that the inscription KL7 is halfly preserved. It is damaged. Like the other ones, also they're not in a good condition. And you can see here the condition of the texts. But when we analyze the inscriptions together, we come to the meaning. And the meaning is, Lord my God, I know I'm not worthy for you to enter under the roof of my soul's house. And in a digital edition, I think it will be this will be shown in a good way, because in a corpus, in a published edition of a corpus or publication, you cannot view very well these connections, and the photos coming together will show you this intertextuality and connections very well. Actually, this is the beginning of a prayer before Eucharist from Service for the Holy Communion by Saint John Chrysostom. Kyrie o Theosmu, oide oti ukemi axios ude hikanos, hina muhiu potens tegin eiseotes tu oikotes psyches. So when we deal with post-Byzantine inscriptions, we cannot answer some questions. For instance, were the readers able to identify the text? Was it intended to be read by them at all? Or why was one text distributed between different images, like this example here? What did the painter think about the relationship between text and characters? Was the text quoted by the painter from memory? To what extent does the choice of the text imply literally, liturgical, or theological competence? So we ask ourselves these questions, and honestly, the answers are difficult. So we have a network of relationships, and Mitko, if you're here, you can continue.
Yes, I am. Probably you hear me. So you see here that we have one character. In our case, this is, for example, the prophet Varlam, the Old Testament prophet Varlam, holding a scroll with one text, which does not coincide with the writings of the prophet Varlam as we know them from the minor prophets. This digital edition could point to different indices, as you saw. If you want, let me share my screen so I can.
Yeah, maybe this is a better idea, because
Yes.
yeah.
I have the same.
I will stop sharing my screen
Yes.
and pass it to you.
Okay, thank you. And yes, now I'll share it. So I hope that you see now. So what we have here is a text which was taken from one place, probably through the intermediary of a hermenia, or probably not. We're not sure, and this is a really significant question of Quellenforschung that we need to do. We have we have a scene in a character. In this case, a prophet standing alone holding a scroll. And we can refer one and the same inscription in our digital corpus to different indices, as we can do in a printed edition, but these indices can be related between each other, and they can be interactively accessed one after the other, and see what else is there in these indices. You have the index locorum, which will identify the place, the index of words. You see how every word is lemmatized. We have the same here in ORASIS. We will have an index of scenes and characters. For example, separate saints, subcategory prophets, subcategory Old Testament prophets, subcategory, I don't know what. We have several level deep hierarchy of these. We have also index of particular editions, which is not the same as index locorum, because we can make fairly good guesses about what were the particular editions, at least of the liturgical books and of the Herminia, which these painters could have possibly used. And it also helps that some of them are already digitized and published in the web space. You see here the good online catalog of the online library of Anemi, where you see exactly this akulutia Thias Metalipsos, which is where this text was taken from, and we can interrelate between all these indices. We can find where the particular character stands in this index of scenes and characters in our iconographical index, where our quotation stands in the index locorum, where our image stands in the index of registers, and if the particular locus can be found in some of the editions from the contemporary to the painter period. So we can then try to answer the following questions. Was the same quotation or variations thereof used in other scenes held by other characters, etc., etc.? Were the same scenes, for example, the prophet Varlam, depicted elsewhere with different accompanying texts? How often such scenes or such texts are to be seen in exactly this place, the northern wall of a church narthex, first register? What other passages, if any, of the same text of this akulutia were used elsewhere in a decoration of a church? And finally, if there is a chance, if they were all likely to be from the same edition which was in circulation in 17th, 18th, 19th century. So this is something I think that a digital edition could provide the tools for the more successful research of such questions than a printed corpus, all the more that, as you saw, the printed corpora which exist are actually a corpora of the church murals themselves and not of the proper epigraphic edition of the text, together with accompanying commentary, such as the one you saw from the editions of classical epigraphic monuments. Basically in all the previous editions, if they exist at all, of such a text, the text was presented and was conceived of as a part of the image, actually, and not as of something that could be represented and researched in and by itself. For this purpose, we are using a customization of the same Epidoc XML template that we're using for our project, and we use actually yet another modification of our own Ajax platform that you're seeing here, which was taken from Telamon, but was customized to solve the different problems of our project and of our source material, which, as you see, there are at least there are very different indices that must be elaborated and to which the separate descriptions must be linked. So what did we do? Collecting data, which Tzvetan has done for his monograph already, together with the taking of the high quality photos of murals, which was also done during the research for his monograph, deciphering the inscriptions, which is a very significant part, And then research of the existing publications of these inscriptions, which is inevitable, even if they are faulty, as we saw. We also have to comment and classify the inscriptions according to the classification that Professor Vasilev showed you earlier, encoding the inscriptions, and then visualization and indexing. Here you see part of, not a part of, actually, our whole team. This is Professor Vasilev and yours truly, Elisaveta Musakova, Professor Elisaveta Musakova, who is a renowned art historian, and she was responsible for our very thorough and very carefully elaborated iconographic index with all the scenes and characters and variations thereof. Madeleine Naneva, who was a technical assistant who encoded the inscriptions, and Ivan Amzov, our web developer, who is also responsible for the distributions of Ajax that you've been seeing. And since the beginning of our work, and even before that, as some of you who are present here might recall, probably Professor Jukeska and Professor Nikolic can remember, as well as some other people from the audience, if they're here, that we have been trying to contextualize our work with both trends in digital epigraphy, as well as with digital Byzantine projects, mainly concerned with the digitization and the publication of Byzantine seals. Such as the Sigidoc collection, of which here you have links to the pilot corpus and of the current guidelines that they have. They're a subset of Epidoc responsible for these particular material, and we have a lot of common with them. We also try to develop common initiatives in which some of you have participated. We had one in-person conference in 2019 in Schumann, when many of you, which are now among the audience, participated. And we also had one Epidoc training week in which some of you also participated, accompanied by a roundtable which took place online on the 1st of October 2021. And lately, we had a very fruitful and inspiring workshop in Cologne about digital approaches to post-Byzantine epigraphy, when we discussed and encoded post-Byzantine inscriptions on objects such as not only wall paintings, but also icons from the iconographical collection that we have, and on which Professor Vasilev has worked. So now I'm gonna show you just a sneak peek of our website. Okay, I'm gonna show the screen. You see probably this design and layout reminds you of something, because we're using basically the same structure of our template and the same visualizing engine. Here you also have a list of inscriptions together with list of geolocated monuments. In our case, the monuments are the churches, not the separate inscription. One monument, which is a church with a whole iconographic program and maybe 200 inscriptions in it. So here are the churches which are geolocated, and obviously our inscriptions are not movable, which means that we won't have the problem of provenance, origin, when it was last seen, where it is now, etc., because most of our inscriptions are in situ. Here you see a representation. Well, probably not this. I'm going to show you this one. This is the most representative one, with some here, of course, you recognize the format of the metadata, but we have some other things here. The monument is the church or the monastery itself. As told you, the place in the church is something that we don't have as a metadata item in ancient inscriptions, but here it is a very essential part, and the location of the inscription in the scene, because here we always have an interplay between image and text and how exactly they relate to each other. Classification of the scenes according to this very thorough iconographical index, which we have to still develop a bit, but you see there's a lot of categories and subcategories, because there are a lot of liturgical or iconographic cycles to which these are affiliated. And we have the description type we have not entered already, but here you see a diplomatic edition, an interpretive edition, and a diplomatic edition, as you can see, for which we use a series of customized fonts, of which Athena Ruby, the one used by created by Dumbarton Oaks and used by Sigidoc, is only one of them. And here you also see the translation and the commentary as in the original Ajax engine. What is maybe interesting for you here is that we have to have additional gimmicks here and there in order to display properly all the different fonts that we have. We're using special tags for them that render these fonts displayable throughout our collection. Maybe I can show you another example when there's more of this. Probably Prophet Jeremiah. See, we have distinct fonts for displaying the Greek texts from the literary liturgical sources. We have yet another which displays the original here in the diplomatic edition. Oops, we don't have this for now, but see that here in the commentary, as in the diplomatic edition, we use a series of very specific fonts, and we are able, because of the customization of our front end tool, to have several from them at once. For some of the inscriptions, actually, even the Byzantine Greek fonts that we have at our disposal are not enough, because we have a lot of diacritical signs and sigla which are characteristic rather of the Cyrillic inscriptions of the period rather than of the Byzantine and the post-Byzantine.